The biggest surprise over scrimmage week is not the fact that the recruiting sky is falling, but it's more like the right recruiting class is here and they've come calling.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I'm going to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All Day O State. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more as playoffs wind down and the summer heats up. FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. There's something in this for everyone, every day, all summer long. Make sure you visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Meanwhile, we get started in the conversation of scrimmage season, which lets you know we're only a couple weeks away from getting underway in the 2024 season. With that being said, Oklahoma State has a very senior-laden ball club. Recruiting has dipped a little bit recently, and after seeing four-star safety Jaden Sanders pick Michigan over Oklahoma State, some are concerned, while others are simply just kind of curious as to what direction we go next. Well, I say, why not circle back around to guys like Aiden Martin, Reggie McNeil Jr., and Juan Million Aguilar, but this last recruiting class is exactly why we shouldn't be anywhere near close to hitting the panic button. We do have one of the oldest teams in the country, the most veteran-led O-line group in the last decade of college football, not named 2023 Florida State. So with 35 some odd seniors, most being super seniors, and 16 some odd juniors, most being redshirt juniors, with a 37-year-old quarterback, a Heisman-level running back, all three returning wide receivers, and 95% of the defense all back, alongside maybe the smoothest 3-3-5 in the league, led by year two's version of Brian Nardo. So with all that coming back, why are we seeing so many freshmen get legitimate rotational snaps in live 11-on-11 scrimmages? Is it because Mike Gundy feels compelled to randomly start forking over sympathy snaps for underclassmen? Is it because we've got almost 140 players by the time school starts that need some snaps to make mommy and daddy back home happy? I would say no. On the contrary, there might be some dudes being tracked every day that might be in a roster doghouse here before too long. But this freshman class is just that good. That's why we're seeing freshmen already in the 3 deep right now. We've already called this the most underrated class in Gundy's last 20 years, and I feel like that claim is continuing to look better. Of course, with this much seniority, some guys like Brennan Presley and Rashad Owens and Nick Martin are going to purposely give way to some of the younger dudes for teaching moments. But guys like Josh Ford, Lando Cleveland, and Armstrong Nodum have earned being at the topic of several freshman contributor conversations already. But some freshmen are just kicking the door down and saying, hey, I can play. Like right now today, I can play this level of game, including safety David Kabongo, who said, hold my beer. I got offers from teams like Texas, A&M, and Utah too. Gunnar Wilson was slept on his entire high school career. He was a millisecond away from committing to a Conference USA team because of all his years at tight end, running back, and defensive end weren't garnering him the attention he deserved. Now he's at 6'3", 215 pounds. He's proving that he is a name that will never be slept on again in Cowboy country or anywhere else. Everyone in America is curious as to who's next in line to jump behind All-American Colin Oliver. Well, he may not be next in line, but Jonathan Agumadu is getting enough legitimate reps right now in 11-on-11 scrimmages to make it an interesting and at least intriguing enough storyline. Around this time last year, we were discussing the power-oriented packaging that we thought we would see week one. That took a little bit before we saw. Also around this time last year, we were all aboard the Leon Johnson hype train. This year, we have been all aboard the DeJon Shriveling and Talon Shetron hype train, while slowly coming around to the idea that I was just flat out wrong about Rashad Owens still having some wide open drop passes obstacles in front of him that maybe have plagued him in the past. He quietly had well over 800-yard season, and he is carrying a 230-pound frame with an even bigger swagger than ever before. So on this day, we shift the hype train to another big-time dude. Today, we could spend the entire first segment talking about how Talon Shetron was clocked at over 18 miles an hour 37 times last week, which is not only an indictment on speed, but also an indictment on the amount of effort that he's willing to give. We could spend the entire segment talking about how after pulling some dudes on who's the fastest player on the team, it was a toss-up between BP and Corey Black with the slight edge going to BP. Well, now Brennan Presley himself has put that bed to rest saying Corey Black is the fastest. He may just being, nice, right? But him saying Corey Black is the fastest, I think, is a good indication on where this team is going. We could talk about the slightly surprising development within the running back room, which we will talk about that. So, but first we got to talk about the new dude to be featured at wide receiver U. Ladies and gentlemen, the new dude making Leon Johnson III style moves is number 9, 6'5", 220-pound JUCO transfer wide receiver, Io Shotomide King. The dude's already pushing for legitimate, major, meaningful scrimmage snaps right now. And you know how high I am in DeJon Stribling. So to have DeJon Stribling not only competing with Cale Cabnis, but now Io Shotomide King simply means that we have a plethora of wide receivers at the Z that can now make plays. So if we end up in a situation like last year where DeJon Stribling maybe goes down early on, we don't have to do a bunch of mix and mash and shuffling around stuff. We're ready to rock and roll. We have got the dude ready to rock and roll, just like we've also got a running back room that is worth talking about. We were all excited when we got Arkansas transfer A.J. Green after putting up 953 yards at Arky, of course. Just like we were all excited to hear about what he was doing in the springtime. Well, we should also get excited about Trent Howland. The 6'3", 242-pound running back out of Indiana is a big deal. He's a big-time number 2. But ironically enough, the most common question that I get anytime we bring up the big size, skill, frame of Trent Howland is, well, what about the massive freshman? Is he ready? Well, that massive freshman is number 28, 6'2", 232-pound freshman Jaden Allen Hendricks out of Columbia, South Carolina. He is physically ready, but there's no need to rush him along. He can focus on the glass factory, class, grades, body health, nutrition, etc. Although there's another freshman, Rodney Fields, has been brought up several times as someone who doesn't hit the hole like a freshman. He's not developing like a freshman. The guy we're going to talk about next is Sesi Velahe. The hopeful Jalen Warren High School coach's Cowboy clone walked in at Oklahoma State at 5'9", 5'10", 190 pounds soaking wet. He's now listed at 5'9", 200, but he's really closer to 2010, as Mike Gundy's mentioned him being 207, 208. So he got a little bit shorter while getting a crap ton bigger and shaving off 5/10 from his 40. Now we're seeing clips as to why we should all be believing in Sesi, believing in not only Sesi or Trent or Ollie, Rodney, or Jaden Allen Hendricks, but believing in the group alongside the hidden daily workhorse glue guys like Hudson Devins and C.J. Williams. This whole group is just better than anticipated very early on. We have so many unknown quality quarterbacks that it feels physically impossible to hang on to all of them this time next year. Well, I feel like the same fear is now applicable at running back. Now, we trust Coach John Wozniak because, he's the guy who brought Trent Howland in. He's the guy who brought A.J. Green in because of the NFL pedigree factory that we've now been building recently. We get him back next year, Trent Howland. We get A.J. back. We get Sesi, Rodney, Allen Hendricks, the whole 9 yards. That's stability. That's job security. And even more of a reason why next season shouldn't be another reload. It should be not a rebuilding, but a reloading. We are big enough and good enough to constantly be in reloading mode as opposed to rebuilding mode. Speaking of rebuilding versus reloading, last year, the D-line was primarily operating within the KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Not so much this year. This year, they need to do more. It's just simple. You move this dude and that dude, and you get as many dudes to eat up blocks and free up the linebackers. That was last year's mantra, not this year. If you want evidentiary proof of that, all you need to do is look no further than the hockey-style rotation that we're working with right now. Obviously, the first sign that we needed significantly more statistical production out of the D-line was Mike Gundy moving on from Cowboy alum Greg Richmond to bring in longtime D-line legend Paul Randolph. The second sign might be the fact that all of these upperclassmen veteran guys like Cody Walter, Scheid, Aiden Kelly, and Xavier Ross are not the ones always controlling the show. It's instead why you're seeing guys like Deshaun Brown, Jaleel Johnson, Obi Ezegbo, and Landon Dean, plus now even some Jonathan Agumadu, be more involved than most thought possible. This may be a position of concern heading into the season that no longer is. I'm no longer concerned about the defensive line. Now I'm just ecstatic to see it on Saturdays because some of these dudes that we're seeing on Saturdays will likely turn into Sunday NFL guys. Now, we caught several NFL Cowboys over the weekend. We'll talk about that in segment 3. Just like we'll talk about the hidden things that we have at the linebacker and running back room. But before we do that, I do have to shift. Remind the fine folks out here that you can't be the MVP of anything if your vehicle can't get there. That's why eBay Motors is the MVP for you. If you have the right passion, drive, and patience to bring home the W, eBay Motors is the right ticket for you. Whether it be superchargers, roof racks, LED lighting kits, and more, speed, power, style, doesn't matter. eBay Motors has you covered. And you already know with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your rig every time or your money back. Now, with eBay Motors, the objective is to have you burning rubber, not cash. So with all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it is that easy to turn your car into the MVP today. Bring home your next W and keep your ride or die rig alive at ebaymotors.com. Again, that is ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Available for U.S. customers because you are special, just like we in Cowboy Country are special to have this embarrassment of riches. Now, we just kind of mentioned a little bit about Sessi Velahi doing a little bit more than most anticipated. Then this is why you bring in somebody like A.J. Green from Arkansas to have that lightning package with Ollie Gordon. I think last year a lot of us saw in the postseason, including the Big 12 title game against Texas, that Sessi was just not quite physically ready. Now you're seeing a different version of Sessi. And I think a lot of us have even seen some of the clips that they've come out with over the course of the last week. Sessi does look bigger, stronger, and faster. So this running back U conversation is allowing to take much more shape because of Ollie Gordon, of course, and because of Trent Howland and A.J. Green. But now we're seeing an emergence from Sessi Velahi. That shaving of 5/10 off of his 40, going from 190 pounds to 207, 208 pounds. That is a ridiculous amount of improvement in just a very short amount of time. So the Jalen clone that we hoped we were all getting coming into the season evidently is right there. Which begs the question, out of the embarrassment of riches that we have at quarterback, are we going to be able to keep all of them next season? Likely not. So now the same question needs to be asked at the running back room. We know that if everything goes according to plan, Ollie is going to take this season into a first-round draft pick. That's why he has a first-round draft grade. We also now know that we get Trent Howland back next year. We get A.J. Green back next year alongside Rodney Fields, Sessi Velahi, Jaden Allen Hendricks, Hudson Devins, C.J. Williams. The list goes on and on and on. So maybe missing out on a Michael Turner Jr. is because of this crazy amount of talent that we already have. So now the question becomes not about development, not about depth at that position, but more about who do we get to keep next season. Guys, with the new stat tracker things that we have that calculate everybody's, miles per hour in practice, it's a good way to quantifiably figure out who's putting forth the most amount of effort. And as we just mentioned, Talon Shetron was clocked at over 18 miles an hour over 37 times just in the last week. So that amount of effort is being tracked up and down the line. And if you have almost 140 players, it would almost feel inevitable that some of those dudes are going to get a stern talking to about an uptick in effort. Because if you're not willing to put forth the effort, then you're not going to get the development that we need that embodies this Cowboy culture. We have that at the running back room, just like we have it at the linebacker room. I mean, we're having a conversation about so many freshmen getting out on the field, including Gunnar Wilson, Jonathan Agumadu. I think Tamarick Johnson is going to make a name for himself. Lando Cleveland, of course, has the athleticism to be an all Big 12 or if not an All-American pretty quickly. And now you have David Kabongo popping back up and saying, not so fast. I'm still a dude. I'm still here. We've had several conversations about how Josh Ford very early on went from, a Stiller High guy, a Gundy building up kind of guy, to legitimately getting some snaps this season as a true freshman, even after bringing over Tyler Foster, the 6'7", 245-pound tight end from Ohio. There should be no reason why any freshman at all are really playing any significant minutes during scrimmages. Usually, if you have this amount of freshmen that are playing in scrimmages this early, it's because you have a depth issue. It's because some of the upperclassmen maybe aren't doing enough to give you the warm and fuzzies and security on that group moving forward. Because Jeff Robertson would start at most places, but because of Nick Martin and Kendall Daniels and Justin Wright, we may not see a lot of Jeff this season, which will be a travesty because he is that good. Just like Chris Robinson coming over from Kilgore. He is that good. Ayo Shotomai King as a wide receiver, that good. And we're not even getting to talk enough about Obi Ezegbo. Because Obi Ezegbo is a weapon that I don't know that we've seen. Maybe a little bit of Colin Oliver, but we also have Colin Oliver. And then you're having guys like Deshaun Brown and Jaleel Johnson push each other to the point that either one, if not both of them, are going to end up being all Big 12 caliber, all American caliber dudes. We could be in a position this time next year where Jaleel Johnson and Deshaun Brown are being talked about as two of the best defensive end in the Big 12. The linebacker room is no different. Guys, Gabe Brown is a legitimate force at middle linebacker, as is Gunnar Wilson. Yamil Talib is a freshman at 6'2", 230 pounds, coming into the building with an NFL pedigree and the development to match that we're not even get to talk about enough because of how insanely loaded down we are at running back and linebacker. And more so, we're seeing this same level of depth at the defensive line. I think the defensive line has to do a little bit more in a prove-it scenario. But this linebacker room, I would argue it's the deepest we've ever had. If you go back and look at the 1984 defenses with how many NFL guys ended up kind of being around that range, okay, you could say that. I mean, we've got some future or former Cowboys and NFL dudes to talk about that were part of the 2021 team in segment 3. But this running back room and linebacker room are better than anticipated. You can't just lean on just Ollie Gordon. Well, now we know that Trent Hallen is more than serviceable after being a Big Ten leading running back for Indiana. And Coach John Wozniak has created this NFL running back pedigree that more and more people are going to want to be a part of. So if we have any issues at running back and linebacker, we can sleep easy. Those are two spots that we don't have to worry about an insane amount of depth. But we do have to worry about how many of these Cowboys are going to end up being in the NFL, because it's only a matter of time. And I think a decent amount of us had the opportunity to watch some of the preseason over the weekend, which featured several Cowboys. So let's go over some of the top dudes that we were able to witness over the weekend. But before we do that, it is FanDuel season, aka it's time to make some money, honey. As the Cowboys get prepared for a Big 12 title run and a CFP playoff appearance, there's no better time for you to get pumped up and download the FanDuel app. The sports aren't sporting like we like during the summer, but football season is right around the corner. And FanDuel is allowing you to basically capitalize whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app, dream up a bet, and make it happen. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. So there's now something in this for everyone every day, all summer long. Make sure that you head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your money-making summer. With FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and Cowboy football. Visit FanDuel.com to capitalize on the season right next to Mike Gundy and the Cowboys as we prepare to make a CFP run and a Big 12 title run. Speaking of some Big 12 title level dudes, several Cowboys were in action over the weekend. And with Leon Johnson having a little bit of an injury that caused him to miss 4 days, it's no big surprise he didn't get an overabundance of snaps over the weekend, just like Malcolm Rodriguez, right? He's nursing an injury as well. So from a precautionary standpoint, there was no need to get him on the field. Chuba Hubbard and Jalen Warren are not in any jeopardy to not make a roster, nor are they competing for roster spots, so they didn't play. But Mason Rudolph did. He played well enough that, he could make a top 5 of the Cowboys over the weekend list. So let's start off with number 5. Where Mason Rudolph probably should be after 126 yards, 7.4 yards per completion after going 10 for 17, but he didn't get a TD. So I'm going to shift here a bit and give the number 5 spot to Giants cornerback Christian Holmes. Christian Holmes tied for the second on the team in tackles, both total and solo. So we got to give the 5 spot to Christian Holmes because I expect Mason Rudolph to do exactly what he did, but he's also got to get in on the scoring action as well. Number 4, wide receiver, Tylan Wallace. Tylan Wallace was 1 yard shy of leading the Ravens in yards with double the yards per completion as number 1 and half the amount of receptions and over half of the targets as the leading Ravens wide receiver. Congrats, Tylan. Got you number 4 here. Sticking with wide receiver, and guys, I thought if we were going to be talking about a former Cowboy wide receiver making a big impact over the week, it would have been maybe James Washington or Leon Johnson or Tyron Johnson. But instead, in a game where Mason Rudolph does rip off 126 yards, we're instead talking about the San Francisco 49ers leading wide receiver Tay Martin. He led the team in targets, he led the team in receptions, and he led the team in yards with 5 for almost 60, including a nice little 17-yard gainer and 11.6 yards per catch. Number 2, a big day out of the Rams safety, Jason Taylor II. He led the Rams in total tackles with 7. He was number 2 in solo tackles with 4. He was flying all over the field like the dude that we saw making a name for himself while dominating the Texas Longhorns just a few sweet seasons ago. Now, a side note there, Anthony Goodlow actually got in on a couple really nice tackles and had some really nice plays as well for the Rams. That was pretty cool to see. Number 1, the guy who had the biggest impact over the weekend was Emmanuel Bangbamiga. The former longtime Chargers linebacker is now a Chicago Bear, and he led the Bears in total tackles with 8 and solo tackles with 6. He also got in on the quarterback sack party for the Bears, who were impressively led by Caleb Williams. I'm not a big believer in Caleb Williams, but small sample size, he did look pretty good. So did some Cowboys right next to him. So I reckon that's all we're going to have for this one right here. But in closing, the freshman class of 2024 is still, in my opinion, the most underrated we've likely ever had under Gundy. I think the fact that they're getting play does show strength in numbers, strength in seniority, but also strength in the talent level. You're not going to thrust those guys out into 11-on-11 scrimmage situations if they're not at least some semblance of ready to contribute. It could mean contributions on special teams, of course, but this class is better than everybody in the country is going to talk about. Just like this current 2025 class is probably better than most expert punditry are willing to discuss. The running back room is deep. The linebacker room is deeper than we could have thought possible. The defensive line rotation is something that's pretty rarefied air in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So again, it's capitalization season, and it's time for all of us to get squared away. We're watching the Cowboys take home some hardware this season. Until the next time, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, God bless. Go, Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. For your second listen, go check out Spencer McLaughlin, a Locked On College Football. He's got some interesting stuff to say about Deion Sanders in the state of Colorado. Go check that out. Until then, like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay. Too, more importantly, share, comment, and subscribe my podcast and people out there. You're the bricks, the bread, the butter, the foundation, the stucco. Call it what you want to call it. Do me a favor, hit the stars, leave a review, do what you do. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. All righty, y'all. Until next time, that's all we're going to have. I appreciate you. God bless. Go Pokes. Later, taters.